What's happening, Internet fam? Today is June 28th, 2020, and we're checking out the brand new Linux Mint 20. I burned a CD earlier. For whatever reason, this little old Dell box that I do all my testing of distros on doesn't like to have installs from the USB key, but it installs fine from DVD. So I just installed it fresh. I'm running it now, and the only thing I've done so far is install OBS, which you see running here, and HTOP, which you see running here, so I can make sure that it's running smoothly while I record this video. And as you can see down here, it's not running perfectly. I'm only getting 24.19 frames a second, so that's not completely ideal. But anyway, let's go ahead and check out the new Linux Mint. This is it. This is the default desktop here. One thing I noticed right off the bat, down here in the system tray here, there are two audio devices. I'm not really sure why. If I right click on them, you can get some different options here, but there shouldn't be two. Now I do have this extra special microphone that I'm recording this with, but that shouldn't be affecting it. There are updates to run too, so that's something we're going to get into. But the very first thing you're going to see here is the Welcome to Linux Mint screen. Now by default, by the way, this is Linux Mint Mate. I think that Mate is the best desktop that I've ever used, has been for a while now. GNOME 2 was amazing, and Mate 2 is a continuation of GNOME 2. So, big fan. A couple things I noticed right off the bat, when you click on the Start menu, why is it this bright, like light gray color? It doesn't match the, the taskbar down here at all. Shouldn't it be the same color as the taskbar by default? There's just a lot of little fit and finish issues. Another thing is when I installed the operating system, when it said eject the CD and press enter, it ejected the CD, I pressed enter, and then it was in some kind of loop, so I had to alternate control backspace, which if you're familiar with Windows, alternate control backspace is the Linux version of alternate control delete, where you can kill processes. So I had to actually alternate control backspace, and then it showed this thing repeatedly crashing in the text console there. And then I actually had to hold the button down, turn it off, and turn it on. But other than that, it installed very quickly and very easily. I did have to install from DVD, like I said, but it installed very well, and it actually works, unlike Linux Mint Debian Edition, which I could not get to work on this particular hardware for whatever reason. So this is the Welcome to Linux Mint screen, and here's the first steps here. Now here in the first steps, you can pick different colors for your folders. So you can make them light blue, and you can see the folder changes right away to light blue, some kind of dark blue, some kind of brown, some kind of gray, some kind of orange, pink, purple. So this is interesting because that's going to change all the colors for all the icons, as you can see here, and that's interesting, cool thing. Oh, here's my test videos that I was running. Those are all gonna get thrown away. But it's very interesting, very cool idea for theming that you can just change the folder colors automatically, and it's going to change that all the way around for everything. I like that a lot. I'm gonna go with gray because I like gray. I guess you can switch to night mode, and boom, now it's dark, and now this is dark as well. So why didn't they just default to night mode? Honestly, that's all they would have had to done to make this really look like a very fit and finished and nicely polished desktop. So yeah, this is the default favorites here. None of these are apps that I really recommend. I prefer HTOP to System Monitor. I prefer Audacious to the Rhythmbox music player. I don't know anybody who uses mail clients these days. Almost everybody's using some kind of webmail. And Firefox is okay, but there's a lot of other browsers I prefer. I prefer the Brave browser. A lot of people use Chrome. Chromium. Image viewer, again, not something I really need in the shortcuts, because if I'm going to double click on a picture, that's going to open it up anyway. So again, the default apps and the favorites, not really useful. Terminal, I mean, if I give my mom or somebody who's maybe not as tech savvy as I am, a computer set up with Linux Mint, I expect these to be favorites that you're going to actually use, and they're not going to use any of these. So I'm going to go ahead and remove a lot of these from favorites. The display changer, that's not something that I'm going to do often. System monitor, definitely not something I'm going to use because I use HTOP. Terminal, don't need it because I can just press alternate control T and bring up a terminal just like that. So again, not something I'm going to need in my favorites. Text editor, no, I don't use that very often either. Calculator, I might use calculator. Rhythmbox, I would just go ahead and uninstall that. But for now, I'm just going to remove it from favorites. Again, who uses web anything besides webmail these days? Not too many people I know. Remove from favorites. Picture viewer, again, if I'm going to see a picture, I'm going to double click on the picture on the actual file. That's going to automatically open up the picture in the picture viewer. So not something that I need from my favorites. So I'm going to remove that from favorites as well. So now we've got a very empty menu. It did come with a bunch of apps that I would put in here though. Definitely I would put in LibreOffice Writer. Definitely add that to favorites. Why isn't that in favorites by default? I don't know. LibreOffice Calc, also definitely something that I'm going to put in favorites. Sound and video. Now VLC doesn't come installed by default. However, it was installed automatically when I installed OBS Studio, which is the only thing that I did before I started this demo. So interesting. Didn't come with the GIMP. We're going to have to install the GIMP later, and that should also be in favorites. I much prefer a lot of different apps. Like I don't use Transmission. I use QBitTorrent. It's just a much better torrent client in my opinion. Yeah, so none of these are things that I'm going to put in my favorites. So now, but at least we've got the word processor and the calc. Those are things that should have been in the favorites anyway. And let's see if we open the word processor. It's LibreOffice. It's great. I'm going to get rid of tips because I don't care about that. I'm not going to read the release notes. I don't care about that. Although it is going to be interesting to see which version of LibreOffice came with this. And it's version 6.4.3.2, so pretty new. Not as new as a lot of the distros that are based on Arch that, kind of get more up-to-date packages more quickly. But for me, the stability and ease of use of Linux Mint has always been something that I've given to a lot of clients and given to a lot of family members that aren't incredible computer nerds. So, and this is great. I mean, this does everything Microsoft Word is going to do. And it's going to do it, just as well as Microsoft Word. So I don't see the point in giving anybody Windows at this point in 2020. And Linux Mint is one of the things that I've been using with clients to migrate them away from Windows and give them a little bit more freedom and customizability and stability. Because that's the real thing is, most clients I have, eventually their Windows gets all cluttered up and kind of ruined. And I have to either build them a new machine or reinstall Windows or, all kinds of other things. And that's one of the reasons why I really do recommend Linux Mint for a lot of people. So I'm going to go through a few other things. Again, I changed it to the dark mode, much more appealing to the eye and also matches the panel, everything else. I don't know why it wasn't like that automatically. And I switched from the default green to the silver, which I just find a little bit better. System snapshots, definitely something that I recommend for most end users. I'm not going to do that because I test distros all the time. And honestly, this probably won't end up being my main daily driver. It's a great OS, but probably not my main daily driver. I use Devuan, which is a little bit harder to customize, but if you're a Linux guy like me, super easy, and it is just way more efficient. If we go look at HTOP right now, okay, so getting back to our first looks, let's go ahead and take a look at what comes in with these first steps on the welcome screen. Again, system snapshots, definitely something that most beginners should launch. I do other stuff, so I'm not going to do that. Update Manager, I'm actually going to launch that from the system tray down here behind me. I guess if I'm in here, I guess I could hide me, and yeah, you'll see there's going to be updates here. And that's a good thing to do. But one of the things we do want to do right away is launch the driver manager. It's great. The way their welcome screen is set up, very, very useful. So let's go ahead and launch that. That's going to ask for your password, which you have password again. Kind of weird. I just put in my password, but that's all right. Mint does this great thing where they try to find the closest server to you. I've always been a big fan of that. So I'm going to let this run for a second and make sure we get the highest speed mirror. And I'm going to pause the video in the meantime. Okay, so it looks like EvoWise CDN is the closest thing to me for the main mirror. For the base for the this other one here, it's probably going to be the University of Hawaii because I'm in Hawaii. So I'm just going to select that one right off the bat and not even let it test. And then I'm going to say, okay, it's going to run that. It's going to update the cache and make sure that I'm pulling files from the fastest source that it can find them. Again, another way that Mint handles things that is just really, really great. I know some other Linux distros do the same thing, but and I did install the OBS PPA already. I'll probably install some other PPAs later, but that's enough for now. And I like this maintenance thing in here where you can run all these things. These are things that I've had to do for clients a long time in the past, or a lot of times in the past. And I love it that it just automatically works there. That's great. So anyway, now we're on local mirrors and we've got all that going. So let's go ahead and install the updates. That's going to install a new Linux kernel, etc., Linux kernel headers, all that stuff. So that may force me to reboot. We'll have to see about that. Okay, apparently I was paused there for a minute. Anyway, I'm still running the updates here. One of the updates that ran there for a minute was systemd. It's totally a bummer that systemd is still a thing. It's definitely a bummer that it's installed in Linux Mint by default. That's one of the reasons I use Dev1 as my daily driver and not Linux Mint. Systemd is a really just poor design. It's this monolithic giant design. It's not modular at all. Very inefficient. And it's got a lot of security issues as well. If I'm the only one who thinks so, I'm not the only one who thinks so. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to let these run and I'll be right back. Okay, so the update's finished and it's telling me a reboot is required because there is a new Linux kernel, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and reboot and continue where we left off. All right, so I'm back and I've made a few changes to OBS, so I think I'm getting a little bit better video and a little bit better video performance. Anyway, I'll get that perfect later. So where were we? We were at first steps. Driver manager we did, update manager we did. So we are basically pretty much ready to roll now. I'm going to go ahead and check out the system settings and just look around in there. We did driver manager. We haven't done the backup tool. Haven't done, system reports. This is interesting. It's already got an exclamation point down here for system reports. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. See what it has to say. Install the language pack. We don't need those. So let's just go ahead and ignore this report. Oh, actually, no, it's for Open Office with a hyphenation. So that can actually be useful. So let's go ahead and install that. A hyphenation for, I'm just going to say yes to that. It's going to ask me for my password. All right, so picking up where we left off. In desktop settings, I went ahead and removed, turned off the computer, turned off home, and turned off mounted volumes. Those are all things that I can see here in the start menu. So I don't need to have those cluttering up my desktop. That's just me. Let's go ahead and look at the windows. Now, right now, by default, Mate uses Marco and compositing. One of my big pet peeves that I had with the beta, which I tested, was that the compiz settings were really terrible out of the box. So fingers crossed. Let's see how it goes with switching to compiz and see if that actually works. Okay, we are now in compiz, and that put all of my folders, or put all of my apps that I had open on the same desktop, and there's no default window decoration. So they did not do a default compiz config for Windows Mint 20 Mate. I submitted a bug report on the site. I left comments on the news releases. I provided a YouTube video explaining how best to do so, all of which fell on deaf ears. This is a problem I've had with Mate in the past. They put out a beta, they get a bunch of feedback from the community, and then they put out a final that is in essence no different from the beta. Once again, here we are with an unusable compiz desktop right out of the bat. And that's just a crying shame, because I think the compiz and Mate together as a combo are one of the better desktops out there for end users. And it's really fun and easy to set up a nice compiz setup. And Mint Mate does it so well, but not out of the box. None of the settings are set up. So I'm going to walk you through that. I shouldn't be having to do this, but once again, Mint Mate is not. I'm going to turn off this warning because I do compiz all the time. not set up properly out of the box. So general options, one of the things that we got to do first is go to let's see, desktop size, and we have to add some horizontal desktops. And now we have multiple desktops, although we can't switch to them. We're definitely going to want to have composite selected. It's one of the things we want to have in Compiz. We're going to want to turn on the mate compatibility. We're going to want to turn on OpenGL, and we're going to want to turn on the commands as well, because we want to be able to enable commands. So, and there's absolutely no commands set up by default for Compiz. So again, this is just, oof, it's just such a drag that we have to do this. Okay, so now we've got opacity, brightness, and saturation. That's cool. Still can't switch desktops. Enable desktop zoom. Enable mouse position polling. Great. But there won't be a shortcut for the desktop zoom to work. So that's something we're going to have to enable as well. We're going to enable it. And I use Shift Super, which is also the Windows key on most keyboards. And I believe button 4 is for zoom in. And then we're going to do Shift Super button 5 for zoom out. And again, all of this could have been done by default so now I can zoom in and zoom out. Very, very useful, especially when I'm doing demos like this. So, but I still can't drag windows around at all. So obviously we have to fix that. So let's go ahead. Oh, there's a lot I'm going to have to turn on here. So down here, move window. So the windows are movable. Again, though, can't move windows right now because there's nowhere to grab the window and move it. The reason why is because there's no decoration set up. We're going to want to move windows. We're going to want to resize windows. We're going to want to probably some of these other ones. I think snapping windows is a good one too. We can turn on wallpapers. I'm not going to do that right now. Crash handlers. Some of these are really useful. PNG, text. A lot of these things are useful. We're going to have to turn them on. So, okay, window decoration. That needs to be turned on by default because otherwise you won't have anything to grab to move windows. So that's kind of a key deal. So now that I've got some things actually working, let's see if I can. I can't move these to other desktops yet. Can't move to other desktops yet, so let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go ahead and do enable the desktop cube. That's the one I like. And let's do rotate cube. And now I have multiple desktops. So we are starting to make some progress here. So let's go ahead and put our OBS on a different desktop. And let's go back and put our root terminal on a different desktop. And let's go ahead and put our htop on a different desktop. So with all this going on, Compiz and everything going on, we are only using 1 gig of RAM and about half the CPU. And this is while I'm recording this video. So there's quite a bit going on here, and yet it's running very smoothly. So that's good news. So it's efficient. That's good. I like having 3D windows. They pop out a little bit. What's that doing in my frame rate in OBS though? Look at that frame rate in OBS. Not great. Are we out there? 11 FPS, 15 FPS. So not great frame rate. That's too bad. Let's see what we can do. So there's a lot of things that you got to change in the rotate cube to make it just a lot better. I like to do the zoom, I think 0.5 or something like that. It's a good one. Try 0.5. Yeah, so now it really zooms out so you can really see what you're doing when you're spinning the desktop around. I like that a lot. Another thing you can do here is change your time step here. Right now, I mean, that's pretty slow to come in and out of the expanded desktop. It's just not as quick as I'd like it to be. So let's go ahead and speed that up a little bit. I think by changing the time step to something much lower, does that make it faster? Maybe. What about speed? speed higher number faster or lower number faster? Seems like lower number is slower. So let's try and go like that. Oh, that's much faster, right? So now we're moving around and really able to use, again though, not great frame rate at 1920 by 1080 at 30 FPS with OBS running. I'm only getting 20 frames a second. Not ideal. Okay, so let's do some other things here. In the rotate cube settings, no, not in the rotate cube settings, but in the desktop cube, there's a lot of things we can change about the appearance. Right now, the sky dome or the background behind the cube is just black. You can change that to an image if you'd like, or you can change it to a gradient. You can animate it or not. So by default, this is a really kind of ugly color for the default gradient. So let's go ahead and change that. Let's give it like a black. Let's make this one black. Let's make this one, the bottom there, some kind of like nice purple color. Now you got kind of like a twilight effect going on. I kind of like that. So maybe a darker purple there. Do a custom color, purple. I'm gonna pick a nice dark one like that. Make it part see-through. Yeah, see what that does. All right, starting to look like something there. We don't want it to be see-through. Let's go purple, darker purple. Make it all the way opaque. Yeah, I think that's making the gradient go more from a black to a purple there. That skybox there. So now we've got the default Linux background. Now you can change this to a bunch of different backgrounds here. Backgrounds still are taking longer to load than I think they should. This is something that Mint has been rapidly improving. A lot of their default backgrounds are, clean and nice too. It's cool that they give you so many different options. This is a new one I haven't seen before. It's kind of a cool idea. So a lot of different options for these default backgrounds. Cool one of the beach or something. But they used to have all of them from previous versions too, which I thought was pretty nice. This one's pretty cool. Where's that? Shanghai, Singapore? Not really sure. It's pretty nice. Obviously somebody's hiking with a view of the city. I kind of like that one. But for me, I'm going to change it to absolutely black because I'm going to go change some of the compiz settings to make my whole desktop run a little bit differently. So we're going to go with transparent cube. We're going to say opacity during rotation. We're going to make it 10%. So 10, enter. Now during rotation, it's almost completely translucent, as you can see. And then we're going to make the non-rotating opacity. Let's go 50, see what that looks like. So now you can have different desktops showing different things. And so now we've almost got a working version of compiz, so that's good. Why this wasn't done out of the box, I submitted a bug report. I mentioned it in the comments. I've pleaded and begged with Clem and the Linux Mint 10 team so many times to have a good default compiz setup, and I don't know why they just refuse to do it. I guess it's just not a focus for them or something. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what we could do to improve the performance more than this at this point. We are getting kind of not that great of a frame rate in OBS, less than 10 FPS depending on what we're doing, so not great. Let's see. I do like the fire paint here. You saw they just enabled that, so fire paint allows me to select things and highlight them on the screen. One of the things I like to do with fire paint, you know what, let's make the background brightness like 80%. I think that's a little better when you want to dim the screen a little bit, but not as much as it does. And then for the particle settings, I like to have maybe less particle numbers. Make the particle sizes much smaller. 1. Let's see what that looks like. Might be a little too small. No? Try 2. 2's looking pretty good. Now I need a higher volume, so put it back at 2000. Now I can kind of highlight things. I don't know if that's enough. Let's see. Fire particle slowdown, the slowness of the fire particle life, randomly colored. What if we raise the life a little bit? What does that do for us? I don't know, not as much. Do it the other way. Seems like it's a little faster. I kind of like that. Let's make it faster. Oh yeah. Now that's something I can actually really highlight stuff with, so that's cool. Let's make it a little bit bigger though, because it's a little too small. Yeah, that's definitely something I can use. Let's see if we get more particles. What happens there? That's looking pretty good. So now I can actually draw on the screen and highlight things and kind of show you what's up with the fire particles. Here I am, and I can clear that. That's actually drawing pretty well, so that's a usable fire particle setting. So again, these are all things that could have been set up by default in Compiz that were not, even though I submitted it all. So it's weird when you do free work for somebody trying to contribute to their project. You'd think they'd like utilize that free work. I mean, I sure do. Anyway, so we've got a working Compiz now. So now let's go ahead and fix the issue with some of the default apps. I'm going to turn this off because I don't need to see that anymore. Cool things in here. Very cool that they can launch you right into the IRC chat room too. That's always been very useful for me. Getting really bad frame rate at this point. So probably I'm not going to be able to run OBS in 1920 by 1080 and have everything be silky smooth when I have Compiz going. While we're at it, let's go ahead and change the profile settings because, again, I don't really like the default profile settings. It's not transparent. For one, I like to have a transparent background, like 50%. That's good. And I like to use a slightly different color scheme. I like to do gray on black. That just looks a little cooler to me for the terminals. And again, this thing's running very well, so that's the good news. I think the limitation is whatever the graphics card is, because it's really struggling to keep good FPS in OBS. So there's that. But hey, we've got a working desktop now, so let's go ahead and install some of the apps that I really like to install. So let's apt install. Audacious is my favorite audio player, much better than Rhythmbox, much lighter weight, much cleaner, much faster, better playlist management. It's really better in every way. Let's install the GIMP. Again, they've defaulted to not have the GIMP installed by default. A very odd choice. I think most people edit pictures, and the GIMP is the best picture editing software. If they wanted to go with a simpler one, I can kind of understand that, but the one that they chose, I'm not really sure I would have went with that one. What is the one that they call it? Let's go see. It's called... Okay, so we've got Audacious now, so we can start listening to music. Drawing, simple drawing utility. And this is great if you want to draw something real quick, I guess, but what if you want to edit a picture that already exists? How many pictures yet? Let's see, let's take a screenshot and see if we can edit pictures that way. So, screenshot. There, let's save it in our home directory, save. And now let's see what we can do with that screenshot and their default program here. Discard changes, fine. Let's see, tools. I guess you can add text. This looks like it could be a useful, oh, I see scale. There are things you can do here. Tools. See, canvas, scale, rotate, flip. We can flip stuff. No, not really doing anything for me there. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this tool's great. I'm sure it can do some things. Not really, oh, I'm just drawing. Oh, so it's really just really about drawing. That's what this is about. Very odd. Yeah, I'm not really sure how this tool is supposed to work. But anyway, that's why I installed the GIMP. So we're going to discard that. I do know exactly how the GIMP is supposed to work. The GIMP is basically a full open source version of Photoshop, and it works fantastically. So GIMP is installed. That only took a second. We're definitely going to install OpenShot. OpenShot is what I use for editing videos, such as this video. That's going to install a ton of stuff. I haven't. I wonder if it's easy to install Wine now with this new version. I guess that's probably worth checking out. Let's see, what else do we need that's not in our favorites? We've got some things now that we got to add to our favorites. Let's go ahead and find those. The GIMP is going to go in our favorites. What else did we install? Audacious, right? On a video, so that can go in our favorites. OBS is already in our favorites. I put that in earlier. For me, I think that LibreOffice Writer, LibreOffice Calc, and the GIMP should all be like right at the top of the favorites. Those are what people are going to actually use to do work on their computer. Most people. Sound settings, again, sound settings are right down here. So I don't really need those over here, right? So let's go ahead and get rid of those. Move up favorites. When OpenShot finishes, we'll go ahead and put that in there. Well, let's take a look at the software manager. I guess that's something we could be doing. Once this finishes, I'll go ahead and pause. Okay, so that's done. So let's go take a look at the software manager, shall we? There is the software manager here. Generating cache. Now, again, this is something that traditionally has taken too long. That was quite fast, actually. So that is something they've definitely improved. But let's go ahead and look at some of these categories. Games. Wine is something that a lot of people are probably going to install, but it's not even a game. So why is that getting top billing here? I don't really know. Super Tux Kart, pretty cool. Westnoth, pretty cool. Edge Wars. It's weird because I'm not sure how they're organizing these, but these are not what I would put at the top. I would definitely put some other things at the top. Zero AD would definitely be at the top. I mean, that's a really, really well put together game. If you're into like Age of Empires, it's a great open source version. Arguably better in ways. KPAT, solitaire games. So that has a much higher rating than ILRAT, which is the one I've been using. So let's go ahead and try KPAT. What do they got there? Got a nice image. That's cool. Solitaire games, including Spider. Okay, so it's got Spider. It's the only version of Solitaire I play. So let's go ahead and install that. See if we like this one better than the ILRAT one. It's going to ask for my password. And that's going to go ahead and continue installing. While we're installing, we can try some other things, I guess. Dream Chess? Dream Chess, huh? Let's see. When was the last? I like Brutal Chess a little bit. I think Brutal Chess might look a little better than Dream Chess. I don't know. I guess we could install Brutal Chess. Chromium is probably something that I might install later. I might just go install the Brave browser instead as well, though. And a little crypto while I'm surfing. Scorched Earth is a really fun game. If you haven't played that one, it's pretty fun. Anyway, that's enough of the games zone. Let's see, accessories. What do we got in accessories? Password manager, Conky, application to create video DVDs. Oh, that's a good idea. I always like to burn CDs with K3B. Why are there two versions of Wine in Software Manager? Kind of weird, right? And will it work perfectly if I just hit install from the Software Manager, or is there something else I need to do? That was a problem before. Well, I know something else we can do too. Let's go look at Warpinator. Warpinator. Let's go ahead and put that in our favorites. So this is a new app that's for sharing files between Linux Mint desktops. Something I've been kind of excited about trying to use, and I've already got it installed on a Linux Mint 19.3 machine in the other room. No other computers found, so did not find the other computer. So this is, again, something I reported in the beta test and in my beta report, which I submitted to GitHub. I mean, I went on the forums, went in GitHub, went on the comment section for the betas. I don't know how to get their attention and have them actually fix this stuff before it comes out of beta. So Linux Mint 20. Overall, not super impressed. Too many little issues, too many things to fix. Just not exactly happy with it as it stands. Fonts. I mean, look at the fonts. It's not showing you what the fonts look like. So, I mean, this is great. You've got this different list of fonts, but they could easily grab all the fonts from DaFont, have all those rated, etc., and have those in here. Wouldn't that be much cooler and easier? Graphics. Let's see. Inkscape, GIMP, VLC, Blender. Which version of Blender will this install? Because if it's 2.8.2, so that's good. That's a newer version. It's actually going to be compatible with what most people are using right now. So that's cool. Blender's installed already? Very odd. Would that be installed by default? Is that real? Let's go look at that. Blender. Blender is installed. I didn't install Blender. It must have been installed automatically when I installed one of those other packages. Which one? Don't know. Very interesting. I've been using OpenShot for a long time, but I wonder too. Let's see. Let's look up. Let's see, sound and video. So K3B, we're going to want to install. Audacity, we're going to want to install. Let's go ahead and install those from here since we're at it. K3B, install. I installed OpenShot already, but I wonder if OpenShot is the best one for editing videos. Because honestly, I'm not completely happy with it. I wonder if acetone. I haven't tried that one before. I wonder how that stacks up compared to K3B. K3B is much higher rated, so we're gonna leave that one. So OpenShot was a 4.0. What other ones we got here? Screencast and screenshot application created with design in mind. I haven't played with a lot of these. What's a good video editor? Ardour is something I use all the time, but I'm probably going to continue to use that in Dev 1 because that's like serious business. And I just don't take Linux Mint that serious since they took the systemd poison pill and since they don't listen to beta reports and actually fix things. Hydrogen drum machine, I'm definitely going to use that. I have to put in my password again, even though I've been installing things in the software manager this whole time. Kind of odd. Okay, so Hydrogen is installing. Why I need to put my password in again, I'm not sure. Let's see, video. OpenShot Minitube, MPlayer, Kazam, Fmpeg. Easy to use screencast creator. I wonder if that's more efficient than OBS. Interesting. Advanced subtitle editor, Kodi. Kodi's complicated for me. I don't know why people are into that one. Difficult. Prior plugins, that's something I'm going to want because I'm going to use that in OpenShot and maybe in OBS. So, Fluid Synth plugin for VLC, simple screen recorder, SMTube, MPlayer GUI, photo film strip, slideshow creator with Ken Burns effects. Huh. That's interesting. I like that idea. Maybe I'll do something with that. Rated 4.0. Seemed too bad. 3D video player. GM live video front end for MPlayer. OBS Studio. How's that only a 4.0? It's great. Now here's another thing too. I'm in the software manager. Can I leave a rating? How do I leave a rating? Click here to add your own review. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to sign in here. Got it. I'm gonna pause the video while I sign in so you don't see my username and password. Okay, so I had to reset my password and do a couple of things to get in here, but I'm finally in here, and now let's see if I can rate an app from the software manager. We could probably close Warpinator since it doesn't work anyway. And let's see. Where was the software manager? I already have that open. I do. It's back here. Minimize you. OBS Studio, so we can make our own review. Let's go here. OBS Studio. Okay, I can install it here. That's fine. Let's see, I can add a review. OBS is awesome, so I'm definitely going to give it 5 stars. So let's see. Best way to record your desktop or video from a webcam by far! Exclamation point. All right, so let's see. So add review. And then let's see if that updates the software manager real time. Or it has to be approved or something. Let's go look. I have to refresh the cache or something. How do I do that? Refresh the list of packages. Let's do that and then see if OBS has a new review and a higher score. The OBS Studio. Well, now what is this? This one has all kinds of more reviews. Oh, I see. Because we're doing the flat pack. And I'm going from PPA. Oh, so this is going from well, I just don't know what's going on with this. Why there's 2 different versions. Again, you know, a lot of this is just wonky, and if you were coming from Windows or Mac and you were trying to figure this out, you'd be like, what the hell is going on? And I feel like that's really the summation of what's wrong with Linux Mint. Everything should just work out of the box and be easy to use. I feel like this is a distro that's primary use is for Windows users or Mac users to migrate into Linux and to be able to use something right away out of the box with no issues. And there's just little issues everywhere. I mean, they're defaulting to a theme that's super ugly. They have none of the compiz stuff set up. You know, it didn't find drivers for my graphics card. It's, you know, there's so many little details that you have to go in and kind of fix and hem and haw. And if you're going to fix that many details, you might as well try a different version of Linux anyway that's way more efficient, that doesn't have all the monolithic garbage like systemd, etc. You might as well try Devon at that point. So Linux Mint, been a fan for a long time. You should really listen to the feedback from your beta testers before you do a final release that is in essence broken for a big section of the population. If they wanted to use compiz, you know, they're going to have to redo all of that out of the box every single time, and it's very annoying, especially when you have users providing feedback and sending data to you in such a way that this shouldn't have been an issue. So yeah, Mint 20 cool, Warpinator cool, but Warpinator didn't work, and yeah, there's just too many issues for me to really recommend it for new users. So I don't know which distro to give to new users at this point. Maybe one of the ones based on Arch with the rolling releases that's simpler. Manjaro seems like it's really clean. Their partnership with Pine, the Pine book, very interesting. But at this point, Linux Mint, I've been using you since version 7 or something. I mean, way back in 2009 or something. I don't even remember when I first started using Linux Mint. It's been a long time. And at this point, it should really just work better. And it doesn't work that great. And, you know, it should just be a lot better. You guys are getting a ton of funding now from the community. a ton of funding. It's awesome. I mean, some months you guys are making like 9, 10 grand or something. You obviously have the development team there to put it together, but you're not listening to your beta testers. You're not actually looking at real world usage. Your software manager is still like this confusing cluster of junk. It's really not good. Your default apps are mostly terrible, if I'm being honest. And at this point, you know, the default layout, I mean, it's in military time. I'm looking at my my clock down here, and you know, okay, now there's not 2 speakers and 2 mics, so that somehow fixed itself. But why is the clock in military time? Why do we have the full date? I mean, do people really want that? I don't think they do. And here's the thing, if I change that date and time, it'll probably crash the panel and I'll have to reboot and then restore the default panel and then change it again. That's another thing that's happened to me again and again and again with Linux Mint Mate especially. They're not putting the love into Mate. They're not putting the love into XFCE. It's very clear the Mint team cares about Cinnamon. They don't care about Compiz at all. They don't care about Mate at all. And for me, that just makes it another kind of distro where it's like, okay, if I wanted to go and use their monolithic setup how it is, I might as well just stick with Windows or Mac or something else. And it's not good enough, Mint. You guys got to do better.